Greetings, everyone. I am Aditya Ashutosh, and on behalf of Symposium VIIT, I welcome you all to yet another episode of SymMeet. And today we have with us a very rich source of experience and talent. He is a renowned writer, a renowned author, a director, a digital marketing professional, and currently he is working as the chief curator for the app content at Terribly Tiny Tales. You must have heard of it. And he has been lead editor for all the three bestseller TTT books in collaboration with Penguin India. Thank you, sir, for gracing us with your presence here.
Thank you. Thank you for
It's
having me.
so nice to be here.
Thank you for having
So,
me.
can we begin with the questionnaire?
Yes.
We have your permission.
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to go right from the beginning, right from the scratch of your journey. So, when did you first fall in love with words and writing stuffs like you do?
Well, I mean, falling in love with words is a little too much. I don't really like the idea of romanticizing the writing bit a bit too much. But I think the first time I sort of actually sort of liked the idea of writing fiction or liked the idea of creative writing was actually because I saw a lot of ads, growing up as a child, and I always loved these really funny, nice advertisements that we saw on television. And growing up also, eventually in the early days, there was no such inclination towards writing. I sort of wanted to become a chartered accountant when I was in school, but that was only until I found out that the hardest part about being a chartered accountant is not studying, it's actually the number of people who pass and go ahead. So that's where I actually dropped the idea when I was like, I don't think this is cut for me. I did commerce actually in 11th and 12th, where I studied, like all the commerce subjects. And finally, even while I was in there, after that, I finally took up this course called Bachelor's of Mass Media, which had a lot of creative subjects. And one of the subjects was also creative writing. And I remember right after my first year of Bachelor's of Mass Media, when I was doing it, I ended up doing an internship in an agency. And it gave me a lot of good experience. It gave me a lot of good exposure. After my second year, I ended up starting this short film channel with a bunch of my friends, and that's how the writing process began. Slowly, as I was doing these different things, dipping my hand in these different creative processes, and fiction was happening side by side. So the proper fiction pieces started only after my first year and my advertising internship. That's when as I moved into the second year is when the proper fiction writing and stuff started, and that's how it eventually grew from there. And yeah, I mean, then advertising or happened, then TDT happened, and now I just do it full time because I just love doing it. So yeah.
That's great, Jerry sir. I mean, people changing what the actual stereotype has become, and changing the uh, course of things and giving their interest a priority. That's
Yeah.
something really inspirational. And let's move to the next question. Uh, every author, every writer I see has some contrasting features which make them different from others. What
Hmm.
would you say is your interesting writing work?
Uh, so I mean, I don't know. The when we talk about being differentiated from other people, and all, it's again very subjective, right? I mean, some people are different. Some people might feel that you write as somebody else, right? But if you talk about me personally, what I love doing in my stories is a couple of things at least. One thing primarily being is I love sort of creating worlds from scratch. Like there is this very big popular notion that writers always borrow from their own personal lives and do things, and I am in fact very opposite. I do not believe in borrowing anything from my personal life and doing it. I always love creating worlds from scratch, building everything from scratch, because I love the idea of making people believe in a fictional world and fictional characters and making them feel for them. And I always love sort of focusing on having a very very powerful ending in a story, because I believe that if someone invests in a story, it, they have to have a takeaway inside it, right? You don't want them investing in your story and by the end of it being disappointed with it. Given that we've had a lot of disappointments in the past with a lot of shows and films, Game of Thrones, if you guys remember. And so it is as simple as that, right? So I mean, I always try to focus on the ending, and I always try to make my characters as grounded and rooted as possible, because I think that the more grounded and rooted they are, and the more relatable they are, is the only way you're going to connect with the audience and with the reader in a very strange way. And yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's different from what other people do or whether it's similar to what other people do, but I mean, at least I consider these to be my writing quirks. There's one writing quirk for sure, is that I love writing in the dark. So I don't know how many people do that, but I definitely do that a lot. So yeah.
Great, great. Uh, so like that's really good, and that's what makes you inspiring and great. That's great. Uh, let's move to the next part. And my next question is that, uh, like, I'm pretty sure that a person, if he's a good writer, he's a good reader as well. So it's just that how has reading changed you as a person?
Okay, I'm gonna make a very big confession right now, and it's not gonna sound very nice when I say this, but so here's the bold truth. Okay, I am a terrible reader. Okay, I am a terrible reader. The last book I probably read entirely was Kafka on the Shore, which I read in 2018 or 2019. I haven't read a
Hey,
single
you
book.
here?
I haven't read a single book after that. I am a horrible reader, and I'm not something I'm very proud of saying, but it's just how it is, because I find it very difficult to sit with books and to finish them
Great.
entirely from start to end. My job involves me reading a lot, where I have to read a lot of pieces. I have to read a lot of things that come in from as submissions. But apart from that, I do not read books or read literature in general online or something. In fact, on the very contrary, I love watching things, and I love watching shows. I love watching movies. I love exposing myself to a lot of regional cinema in India, because I feel that's where the real true stories lie. And but if I had to talk about reading in general, I always advise people to read. And this comes from me being not a reader, but I always tell people that reading often really helps you sort of expand your horizon in terms of the stories you can tell. Because especially even though you're having a writer's block, I mean, and this discussion I had with my friend a while back, where he was telling me that if you're having a writer's block and you're reading somebody else's work, like your famous, like your very favorite author's work, eventually all the ideas in the stories there will clash with the ideas in your head, and you'll have a lot more new ideas. So I am okay reading short stories because they're relatively lesser commitments. So I have this book of short stories called Bitter Fruit by Saradasan Manto, which I go back to every once in a while when I feel like I need some inspiration. But beyond that, I haven't completed a full novel in a very very long time. I started The God of Small Things and I just couldn't finish it. I started M in the Big Whom and I couldn't finish it. It's not something I'm very proud of saying, but I just couldn't finish the books, because I find it very very difficult to sit in one place and read an entire book for a long time. So I eventually just understood that maybe I'm not cut out for reading, and I just write.
Still,
But
I
yeah,
think
reading is good.
you
Reading,
make
everyone
a
should read.
difference with what you do.
Yeah.
That's the main thing actually. So what has been that one turning point in your life that has completely changed you?
Um, Actually, there have been so many, but I think the most notable one, I think, as a matter of fact, was when I traveled solo for the first time. When you're growing up, I think one of the bigger things is always you travel with your family a lot, right? But when you travel with your family, you're also restricted because you're doing a set itinerary with your family. It's the first time, I think, when you step out all by yourself, go into a place you've never been before, is when so many times you end up experiencing a lot of things for the first time. So I actually took my first solo trip in 2017, and coincidentally, it also happened to be my first flight. Right, I had never taken a flight before that, so it was my first flight, first solo trip, first traveling alone anywhere outside of first time getting out of the house alone and stuff properly without anyone around me. So obviously, more scared than I was. My mom was more terrified, and she kept telling me that that please make sure you get onto the right plane, and it was very funny. And yeah, I remember literally I mean, not having any sort of knowledge of how it was going to turn out, but the fact is that I personally feel that everyone should take this one trip at least once, where they travel alone. and they go to a completely different place, because the amount of experience and the amount of learning you get, not only of the people around you but also about yourself, is just great, right? You get to spend a lot of time with yourself, and I think that was, I think, a big turning point in my life, where I sort of, realized, and I spent so much of time, in these different places, and I got to experience a life completely different from what we see in a city, because in a city you have these honking, you're traveling, you just like, you're so stuck in a routine. But when you go to a, you go to a different place, but time almost automatically slows down. It just changes you so much, and start, you know you start looking at things a lot differently because of that. Your perspective almost sort of changes on a lot of things. So I think that was a very, very big turning point, because I sort of really loved traveling after that, and I happened to travel and go to the Northeast a lot of times after that, just because I loved the culture and I loved the place so much. And yeah, I mean, it really helped build into the writing as well, because when you start exposing yourself personally to a lot of experiences out there, they subconsciously almost end up becoming these nice little small nuggets and ideas which you can eventually put into your own stories. So I think that was a big, big turning point in my life, at least. Critic that solo trip
Great,
once.
great. Obviously. So, like, how do you decide what content you should create, and how do you decide to channel that particular emotions into your writings and your content?
Yeah, so creation process, right? I mean, primarily, I have a very silly thing, but I have a lot of photographs, okay, which I used to click when I would travel. So I would love going to these different places and taking a lot of photographs. Eventually, I realized my phone was getting full, and there were too many photographs and nothing was happening of them. So I was eventually like, why not take these pieces and just write something out of them? More often than not, whenever I start something, it's always related to a photograph. If it's not related to a photograph, it's usually related to an idea that I just have. Right? It's probably when I'm sitting, lying down in the shower, anywhere. If an idea comes, it comes, and then it's always mostly like an ending line or an ending phrase or an ending paragraph or an ending idea, and that's how I build towards it. Once I have the ending, then I'm just going to build towards it and start from there. So that's only primarily my creation process, because I always more or less the idea comes. I don't know where it comes from. It just comes. So it's there. So then I know, okay, oh, now that the idea is there, I'm just going to build on it and make it, um, flesh it out a little more, and then put it out there. And there is no magic journey or creation process or anything involved in it. It's just very simple. I like writing in my head before I write it down. So more
Yeah.
often than not, before I've written down the entire story for everybody else to see, it's already written in my head. So I know, okay, oh, this is what it's going to be eventually. Okay, now I just have to write it down now. So that's it's very simple as a creation process for me, at least.
Okay, so we have just came out of the lockdown era, right?
Hmm.
So, back when going to the old normal,
Hmm.
what would your dream Sunday would have looked like? Like,
back
what would
back
happen?
in the day, Sunday was, if I was so Sunday was
Your
three or
dream
four things.
Sunday,
A dream
not
Sunday,
usual
right?
one.
No, I think my dream Sunday would mostly be me waking up at 2 p.m. and just wasting the rest of my day. Or more often than not, I would be in another city for a workshop or something. So it would be fun because I would be in some other city conducting a workshop over there, and probably in that city, and probably preparing to come back in the evening in my flight. So at least my dream Sunday in general was just lazing around at home and watching a film, and just uh, doing the regular things that I still do now, even though now that I'm at home even more often. So even back in the day, it was nothing great unless I was really traveling and going outside. So for me, again, right, I mean, I personally find a lot of joy in just doing absolutely lazing around and doing nothing on a Sunday. So it is one of those things for me. So nothing great as such. Even if we went back to the old normal, I would obviously definitely like to go out a lot more now that we can't. So that's one thing I really, really miss. So I hope that happens soon.
So, this was all of it, and
Great,
that's it for today.
great.
Thanks for gracing us with your presence, sir.
Thanks a lot, Aditya.
And
Thanks for having me.